When people hear we world school, I think they imagine we're either sitting at a table for 8 hours a day or my kid is running wild and doing his own thing. But the reality is really different from both of those. So in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what our days look like, the structure we have, the stuff I don't really bother with, and why I genuinely believe he's learning more doing this world schooling than he ever would have done in a classroom in the UK. Hi, I'm Kath, and I have been traveling the world and world schooling my 8-year-old son for the last 21 months. We travel full time and we have based ourselves in different countries around the world. We've been in Southeast Asia, Europe, Australia, and India. And that is where my son's education happens. And I want to be really honest in this video because there is so much out there on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, that makes world schooling look either incredibly structured and expensive or completely wild and untamed and like they're not learning anything. But for us and for most of the families I've met, it's neither of those things. And I think that's probably more relatable for most people. So here's what we actually do. So most mornings we sit down together and we do an hour or maybe 2 hours of, sit down sort of core schoolwork activities. So that's basically things for me. It's like maths, reading and writing. So they're kind of the real core things, the things that I think he needs to do most days. And I just think they're important things to know and to be able to do. Sometimes it's very quick. Sometimes it's only half an hour and he's really restless and needs to get up and move. Other times we can sit down for an hour or even more and do things if they're things that are interesting to him and keep him motivated and engaged, which isn't always easy with an 8-year-old. I do try to be aware of the UK curriculum and where he would be in it, only because if he does decide one day that he wants to go back to school, I would always say that's okay if that's what he wants to do. And obviously, if we're in the UK, then he's going to join a UK school. And if he doesn't know anything that they know, if he's way behind, it's going to be really hard for him. And I don't want that for him. So I'm not totally winging it. Do you know what? The best thing for me to use is ChatGPT. I use it like it's a lesson planner, really. But I also use it to make sure that it tells me where he would be at his key stage, where he would be in his year, and gives me some ideas for lessons around that stage of his education. So it just helps me keep on track with things. It helps me to keep an awareness of what he should be learning or would be learning if he was to go back to school. And it's just to keep the doors open for him, really. If I take that option away, then it'd be really difficult if he did want to go back. So in the past, we've used Reading Eggs, Khan Academy Kids, and a couple of other apps. He did like those, and then he doesn't like those. At the moment, he's gone off Reading Eggs. I think he's now 8, and he's been doing it for over a year, I think 2 years, really. So we've stopped using that. We just started using Duolingo. He's learning Spanish, which, he kind of enjoys. I think it's not his favourite thing, but he's picking it up very quickly. So, yeah. And we used a tutor when we were in Goa. We had a tutor 2 days a week for an hour, twice a week. And that was great. And she did basic reading, writing and maths as well. The reason I liked having a tutor, and I'm actually going to have a tutor again in the future for him, is because it gives him somebody else to learn from these core subjects rather than just learning my way of doing things, my way of doing maths problems or ideas for reading and writing. He's got somebody else's input, and I think that's really important for him to understand these concepts in a different way and to just be with somebody else. So that's the kind of formal learning side of it. It's not really that much, 1 to 2 hours a day, sometimes less, not very often, much more than that. So that's where we go with the formal stuff. So this is a thing that it's sometimes difficult for parents to understand, is that the rest of the day is learning too. It's just not formal sit-down learning. Jai is obsessed with animals, dinosaurs, Minecraft, monsters. He loves talking about the way the world works. You know, he'll talk about planets and nature and, you know, how the body works. He's also really interested in history, which is a new thing. And he wants to learn about history every day, which is really, really quite cool because I don't know much about history. So we're both learning together. And I think it's really important to learn to follow the lead of your child. So what your child is interested in is where you go with your learning. Because if your child is genuinely curious about something, they will go deeper into that learning and into finding out about that subject. And learning is fun, learning is easy, and learning doesn't really feel like learning. So, for example, we'll watch a YouTube video about, recently we've been watching YouTube videos about history. We drew a timeline, we started in the Stone Age, we watched some YouTube videos on the Stone Age, and we did kind of a mini project on how they would live, what they would be doing, what tools they'd have, those kind of things. Sometimes we might go to museums, sometimes we might go out and visit. For example, we're going to be doing Romans soon, and there's Roman sites around this area. So we're going to go there and we're going to have a look and we're going to do some outside hands-on learning about that topic. And of course, we talk to other people when we're traveling, you know, other travelers, local people. Everybody that we meet is a source of some kind of information for him, whether it's about dinosaurs or Minecraft or the history of the area or animals and wildlife. And then, of course, when you're traveling, there's geography, there's religions, of course, there's still history, there's different cultures, there's different foods, languages. There are so many different things that you can learn and experience when you're traveling. So I kind of think of it as a mix between home education, as in we are learning, you know, the core subjects, along with unschooling. So I don't follow unschooling, but I kind of do some of the time, because sometimes when we're traveling, we don't have time to sit down and do any work. Sometimes he really isn't in the right frame of mind to sit down and do work. And I'm not going to push it, because the more I push it, the further he pulls away. Obviously, every child's different. Some kids love to sit down with a workbook, but he's not one of those kids. He likes to be up and active and doing things and touching and experiencing. So I tend to have the mornings with a little bit of structure, and then the afternoons, it's just kind of unschooled, if you like. So he can follow his own interests, follow his own curiosity. We do different things every day. And I mean, Minecraft, for example, I know it's just a game, but he meets with his friends on Minecraft. So he has that social side of it, which is really good. And then they work together to build their worlds and do whatever they do. He's also got Lego Minecraft, and he creates new worlds with it. It's kind of engineering, it's building, it's imagination. It's all of these things that I think are really important for an 8-year-old child to be experiencing as much as possible. And in fact, when we were covering the Stone Age, he went away and he came back later on and he said, "Hey, Mum, I've built a Stone Age world in Minecraft. Look, they've only got stones for buildings. They've only got wood and flint and axes." You know, so he, without me even encouraging him, he'd gone away and used what he'd just learned and put it into practice and built this little Stone Age world in Minecraft. So that's learning. That's showing me that he has learned something and he's now, you know, using it in he's in the real world, which is really quite cool. Okay, so let me address the things that I get asked the most. So first of all, what about socialization? Now, this is a funny one, because I think if you're home educating, which I was in the UK for a while, and I am now, I'm back, yeah, it can be a bit more difficult because, you know, most kids in the area are at school. So you have to find the homeschool groups and join those and proactively go out and find friends for your child. Obviously, my child's an only child, so he doesn't have siblings. So that takes away those instant playmates. In terms of world schooling, socialization is never an issue. It never has been, because unless you're going somewhere off the beaten track, which obviously you might do from time to time, and we did occasionally, there were times when we didn't have other families nearby. But normally we tend to travel to places where there are other world schooling families, there are expats, there are digital nomads and their kids. And there are always other kids and other families who want to meet up. It's a very, very active socializing community when you're traveling. So not only is he meeting Western kids from all over the world, he's learning how to make friends really quickly, how to communicate and to meet kids from all different backgrounds. You know, one of his best mates is from New Zealand. He's got another couple of really close friends from Canada. He's got friends from all over the place now, but he also meets local kids. And the local kids always want to play. They're always there. They're always friendly. They're always happy. They're always happy for your child to join in. He would play football with the kids when we stayed in Hoi An on our street where we were living. He was playing a lot with some of the local kids in Cambodia. It's just, the kids just play together, don't they, at this age? Obviously, when they're a bit older, it's a bit more difficult. So teenagers might have a bit more of that kind of, distance from each other. They're not just going to go and start playing football together, are they? But there are always teenage hubs as well, teenage meetups. Everywhere I've been, you've had the children's kind of meetups, but there's always been teenage groups as well where they can hang out, maybe chess clubs or art or something where teenagers can meet and hang out and just, not deal with all the little kids and the parents. So I genuinely think the socialization he gets now is broader and richer than it ever would have been in a classroom in the UK with 30 kids in the same area, the same sort of background, same age. And yeah, there are hard days. There are times when we might be on our own for a week or so or longer. And there are times when he gets fed up with my company. But on the whole, socializing has never been a problem for us. What if he falls behind? Okay, so this is a funny one because it depends on what your long-term plans are. So if your plans are for a gap year and then you're going to go home, then yeah, most families I've met who have been on a gap year do tend to stick to some sort of curriculum. They have a structure. Maybe they've had input from their teachers at the school, so they know what they're going to cover in the year that they're going to be away. But if you're not doing that, then you need to ask yourself, who is my child going to fall behind? Is it behind a national average for a very specific set of criteria that the government sets out for the children of the country for a very traditional type of learning? Like I said, I do keep the UK curriculum in mind in case he wants to go back to school or we want to put him back in school for some reason. But I see it as a guide and not a definitive place that I need to be measuring his progress from. Because he was in school for 2 years and the changes in him since I have pulled him out, and everybody has said the same thing that knew him back then. They've said how much more confident he is, how much more curious he is, how clever he is, how much he knows. And he knows a lot about things that probably kids in school wouldn't know about. And as long as I'm keeping his basic core skills moving forward, I'm not worried about him at all. And if he does in the future want to do exams, GCSEs or whatever, then that's something we can tackle at the time. But there are paths that can help homeschool kids do GCSEs and go to university. So is it legal? Yes, in the UK it is legal to homeschool your kids. Obviously things change all the time and, our wonderful government is bringing in different rules at the moment. But yeah, you do have the right to home educate your child. You don't need permission from your school or from your local authority to take your child out of school at the moment. Like I said, things might change in the future, but as it stands at the moment, April 2026, you don't need anybody's permission. When I took Jai out of his primary school, I simply said to them, I'm deregistering him, we are going travelling, we won't be in the UK. And no one ever got hold of us. No one ever contacted us. The school was fine. And that was that, basically. Obviously, if we'd stayed in the UK, the local authority probably would have they would have got in touch with us. And then there's a process. In terms of Worldschooling, yeah, every country has different rules about home educating. If you are going to be resident in a country, I think, for example, Germany, you're not allowed to home educate. There are a few European countries that it's illegal to homeschool. If you're going to move to one of those countries and be a resident there, you may have to send them to school legally. Again, you have to check whatever country you're going to. If you're world schooling, as in if you are traveling and world schooling and you're not going to be resident in that country, then you don't have to tell the authorities because you're world schooling, you're traveling through, you're not a resident there. In countries that most world schoolers go to, so for example, Southeast Asia, Central America, places like Goa, places like that, world schooling is legal, it's fine. And there's often international schools. There are, like I said, world school hubs, or you could just do it yourself. Do you need to be a teacher? No, you don't need to be a teacher. I am actually a teacher, English as a foreign language teacher, but I'm not a qualified teacher with a bachelor's degree in education or anything. But I am a mum who loves to see my child thrive and grow and develop and follow his interests. And I think to do this, you do not have to be a teacher. You do have to be open. You do have to be open to learning yourself as well, because if there's things I don't know, I have to go and find out as well. You have to be open to, finding resources for your child. So, finding people who can teach you what you can't, taking them to places so that they can experience things, whether it's museums or zoos or national parks or wherever it is that you're going. Create experiences for your child and pay attention to what it is that he is interested in and what he wants to learn and how he wants to learn. Because if you're trying, when I first started, I was trying to get him to sit down with a workbook and do written work. He hated every second of it. It was too much like school, which he didn't enjoy. So if your child is like that, then forcing them to sit down is never going to work. But equally, if your child loves doing that, then dragging them around every zoo and museum in town is going to be exhausting for them. So find how your child works. Be aware, be attentive, and make it fun for them. We haven't found the perfect online, curriculum or online program. And I have looked at quite a lot, and some look really good. Maybe they are very expensive, and some aren't so good. Reading Eggs was really good when he was younger. Duolingo is okay. It doesn't really engage him enough. I think the way to learn languages really is to be there, isn't it? I think having a tutor has been really good for us. I don't spend a lot on a tutor. It doesn't have to be hugely expensive. Our tutor in Goa was 300 rupees per hour. So that was 600 rupees a week, which is about £5. So it really wasn't expensive. And that's what works for us. So a little bit of that, a little bit of a tutor, a little bit of working formally in the morning, and then the rest of it just free time. And I really believe this. This is the biggest thing for me. The one thing that world schooling has given my son over everything else is confidence. It's not necessarily academic knowledge. He probably can't do an exam or anything like that. But it's being confident to speak to all sorts of different people. And he wasn't confident before. He's flexible, it's being adaptable, it's being resilient. It's learning from me as well when I make mistakes, because I'm learning all the time and he sees me making mistakes and figuring things out. And I think that is a really key thing for kids to learn, is how to come back after a mistake and know that it's okay to make mistakes and to try again. He's got the ability now to walk into a new situation with people that don't speak the language, in a new country with different culture and different food and different everything, and be okay. And none of that is anything you can put in a workbook. So if you're sitting there wondering if you could do this with your kids, whether you're capable enough of doing it, whether your kids would thrive, or whether it's too big, I was there too. And I had all of those doubts as well. And I still have them sometimes. But I also watch my son every single day and think, yeah, I did the right thing. And if you want to understand the practical side of how we make this life work, the finances, the logistics, the planning, get your hands on the exit plan, how to leave the UK with kids, which I've linked down in the description, because it walks you through exactly how families like ours, like yours, can leave the UK and world school their kids, travel the world full time without too much stress and overwhelm. And if you have got any questions about world schooling specifically, just drop them in the comments. I love reading your comments and I love answering your questions, and I always read every single one. See you in the next video.